My name is Mark Sullivan. I have a 1966 Turbo Twin Comanche. I've owned it since 1997, and I bought it with the turbos on it. Normally aspirated, to save fuel sometimes I'm not in a hurry. I typically fly the plane at 8,000 feet and I'll get, I can get it down to like 14 gallons an hour, but I'm only seeing about 155, 160 knots over the ground is roughly what I'll get normally aspirated. With the turbo, typically I'm up in the 180s, and the 180s on the speed. And you've got to have good engine monitoring, I'll say that, because you don't want, with the turbos, you have to know your engines and you have to watch CHTs and EGTs, but it's turbo normalized, so you're basically just flying it like you would, and the airplane doesn't know it's at 12,000 or 13 or 14,000 feet. It thinks it's at sea level, so you fly it accordingly. So when I'm turbo, I find the plane's most efficient in 13, 14 range. I know a lot of guys fly higher, but I'm getting up there in age, and I figure I'm not going to mess with real serious oxygen requirements. So 13, 14, it's really efficient. Absolutely. And that picks up the good tailwinds coming. I'm flying out of California. Once you know the numbers your engine should be at, and again, if you know the numbers that you normally fly it at, and you remember if you're at a 7,000 foot above sea level airport, that when you get the RAJAYs on, the airplane's at basically sea level. So if you're pulling 10, 11 gallons aside, that's not over rich, that's your sea level fuel consumption. And so once you have that mindset, you take off and you fly it, and then you can, just like you would in any other operation, you can lean it appropriately. So I bring it back to 24 squared, and I can stay 24 squared, and I bring it back to what seems like a reasonable fuel burn, just watching my EGT. I don't fly at lean a peak, and don't do that on the turbos. I guess you can, but I don't. I'll lean it out to like 1450. That 1450 gives me max power. So I'm basically getting 75% power, but I'm in the thin air at 12 or 13 and the airplane moves. But that's not the best use of it. I mean, the best use of it, from my opinion, is it's a lifesaver. If you fly into Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and you start dealing with hot and high, Twin Comanche is a pretty good airplane, normally aspirated, but I've had some pretty exciting takeoffs when I haven't used the turbos. And on the 8-knob Comanche, you put those 2 bottom knobs in, and you get a normal takeoff, and it's a lot less exciting. Sure. As I mentioned to you earlier, also, I think it saves money. I have noted there's a correlation between density, altitude, and fuel price. Right. And as I'm flying along, I'll see these real cheap fuel prices. You'll be flying across New Mexico, which is pretty expensive gas typically, right? Mm-hmm. And you'll see Gallup, really good fuel price, but it's high density altitude. With the turbos, you land, fill up every orifice on the airplane, right? And you turbo out of there. Well, when I first bought the plane in 1997, I worried about it a lot because parts it was scary. I always found them, but it was kind of scary because you had to sort of scrounge around. My hat's off to you, because since you've been around, now the parts I used to worry about, stuff as stupid as the V-clamps, now you've got them, they're readily available. And the gaskets are readily available. That worry, but that was mainly a worry, it was not in reality. I mean, in reality, the only thing that adds to my maintenance is that, I always have to do a check for leaks at every annual. But other than that, that's about it. I tell them, first of all, how do you fly the airplane? If speed is a consideration, I mean, like I said, when I'm loitering around, where I'm just out for a $100 hamburger, yeah, I'll fly it normally aspirated, because 150 or 180, it's irrelevant. I'm just going someplace to mess around. But if you have times when you have to get someplace, or if you fly like in the wintertime, even though I'm in California, there are times when I get to 8,000, 9,000 feet and I start seeing ice. And when you're in icing, the amount of available power is limited by the length of your arm, to quote one of my sons who's an airline pilot. It's a huge safety factor if you fly in mountain areas, or you fly where you're likely to be getting, icing at the high 8, 9, 10,000 foot level, and you can get over the clouds. It's wonderful for that. Yeah. And the other thing that you got that I find that I use if I want to fly for economy, use the turbo to take you up to 13.5, 14.5 if you've got a heavy, nice tailwind going east. Get up to altitude, you come off the turbos, now you're burning 5.5 gallons a side, right? and you're doing 100, 200 knots over the ground because you got a tailwind. So you take advantage of winds aloft a lot with it. But if you want to use the turbos with that tailwind, well, then you're really screaming.
Okay.